Today is March 25th, 2019, and I'm interviewing John Brand, producer of Come From Away in London.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Pleasure.
Can you please introduce yourself and tell me a bit about your background?
So my name's John Brant. I'm the lead producer of Come From Away in London, but I'm also the producer on Broadway and Toronto and the North American tour. I'm partner in Smith Brant Theatricals, UK based, producer of musicals and plays. We also work on Broadway, internationally and domestically on tour. The company's been running for 5 years. My background is actually as a director and an actor. I trained as an actor in New York and worked as an actor in New York. Then moved back to London where I was directing for a number of years before moving into producing in about 2012. And we set Smith and Brant up in September 2013. And produced a version of the Pajama Game and then Memphis the Musical and various others. And then we got involved with Come From Away pretty early on in 2015 when I saw it in La Jolla Playhouse very early in its career. I'm from London. I was born and raised in London. Anything else?
And why did you want to become a producer?
I didn't really, is the truth. I never really wanted to be a producer. I just ended up becoming a producer. I always feel like in this world and this industry, you find your way to doing what you're good at. I trained as an actor, but never really wanted to be an actor. But I liked being in a rehearsal room and I liked being around actors and creatives. I have no family history in theatre at all. My father was a businessman and I always therefore had a desire to be in business and make money, and ultimately I had an entrepreneurial spirit. So when I came back from New York, I didn't know anyone in this industry, and I started directing, but at the same time I would always invest in theatre and see a lot of theatre, and opportunities present themselves, and I really fell into producing properly when I was having lunch with a friend of mine, Joe, who is now my business partner, who was bringing in Sweeney Todd from Chichester with Michael Ball and Imelda Staunton. And we were having lunch one Sunday and he said to me, "You'd be a good producer." And I went, "Oh, thanks very much." And he goes, "Do you want to be involved in Sweeney Todd? Do you want to raise some money?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll give it a go." And about a week later I'd raised all the money and became an associate producer on Sweeney Todd. That was in 2012. And then in 2013, Joe and his then business partner asked me to come on as a junior partner in the business. I didn't really want to do it, and I ummed and ahed for a long time about going and working with them, but eventually decided I'd give it a go for a year. And then 6 months later, Joe's previous business partner left, and we had the Pajama Game and Memphis on the slate, and we'd agreed to produce them in the West End. So me and Joe sat down and I decided to become his partner, and that was it. And here we are. But I'm not like a lot of producers. It's not been a lifelong dream for me to be a producer. But I always feel like you end up where you should end up, and I've ended up doing it. And so far, doing it relatively successfully.
And what exactly do you do as a lead producer?
Everything really. I just got asked this question actually at a breakfast I just had. I mean, we do everything, and it depends on the show. For instance, we've just produced True West, and on that we bought the rights to True West 3 years ago, and we spent 2 years trying to cast it. But you start from the very beginning. you buy the rights to a play and then you start to build. So whether that's attaching the director or the casting director to get the casting, then it starts from there and it builds out, and then it's negotiating theatre deals, it's negotiating, you know, contracts for the stars, it's negotiating contracts for director, assistant director, production manager, company, you know, all of those elements of it. We decide on how the, you know, number one, the big thing is we manage the budget. We decide on the budget and we manage the budget. But we decide, you know, in consultation with experts and those people we employ to market our product or to PR our product. We decide what our campaign strategy should be, our pre-opening campaign, our post-opening campaign. We decide the look of the production in terms of the title treatments and the posters, if you see here. We have a say in the casting. We work alongside our directors and our casting directors. And you know, we effectively do everything. Press night, we raise the money, which is a big thing. Then we have to manage the investors, look after our investors. And on every production it's different depending on how big or small they are. You know, on True West it was a four-hander, it was a relatively small team. Maybe the whole team was 30 people, 35 people. On Come From Away it's much bigger. You know, 20 people in the cast, a band of 8, numerous co-producers, you know, a backstage, quite a big backstage team in a huge venue. So at that point you're managing, you know, 70 plus people on a regular basis. And then also we have our office, so we have to manage our office as well, and we have there's 5 of us in the office and we have to manage them. And whilst looking after the productions that we're running, we're also looking after the productions that we're about to open or the productions that we want to open in 2 or 3 years. So yeah, a lot of managing people, a lot of looking after people, a lot of making decisions, you know, so it's endless and relentless.
How do you choose what play or musical to produce?
It really depends. You know, you read a play and you like it and you think, you know, we are commercial producers, and so therefore we have to believe that any product that we get involved with has a commercial viability, so can make money ultimately, because people invest their money with us. So we have a responsibility to make sure that we believe our show has the potential to make them money. So you read a play, you like a play, you know, that's where it starts, and you decide it could work, you know, or you have a star who wants to do the play. So it can be as simple as that. If you're developing a show, you could read a book, and you could read a news article and decide that they would make a good play or they would make a good musical. That, you know, it's instinctive really. You have to have years of experience and you have to have good taste, because if you don't have good taste, then, you know, you're not going to understand what your audience needs. With Come From Away, Randy and Sue are the lead US producers and the producers internationally. We produced Memphis with them, and they kept telling us about this new musical that they'd got involved with, and we did everything in our power not to be involved, because, you know, it was about a small Canadian musical, small town, 9/11, etc., etc. We didn't know the story, but what we did know is that we trusted Randy and Sue, Junkyard Dog. We trusted their ability, and we believed in them as much as anything else. So when they kept telling us we had to come and see this show, eventually I went to San Diego to see it in La Jolla in June of 2015. And I sat in a small theatre and watched it, and I was just completely blown away. And I was a fan, and I'm still a fan. And so when people tell me how good it is, I'm not surprised, because I remember seeing the show and just thinking it was unbelievable for a variety of reasons. And I walked out of the theatre in La Jolla and I said instantly to Randy, I want to be involved, and I'll put in as much money as you have. And luckily they wanted us to be involved, and they found a place for us. But Come From Away was the least commercial decision I've ever made, because I didn't question anything. I just walked out and said I wanted to be involved, and that was it. And luckily my business partner Joe then went and saw it in Seattle and agreed with me. And that's how we chose Come From Away. We didn't choose Come From Away, it chose us, really. And we feel very lucky to be a part of it.
Did you visit Newfoundland?
I haven't, sadly. Interestingly, my partner is from Canada. She's from Victoria, which is Vancouver Island, which is the other side of Canada. But her aunt was in Lewisport on that day and made sandwiches for the people who landed. Yeah. So when I told her the story, she obviously knew the story really well. Her dad is actually from Prince Edward Island, which is that side. So I know that area, but sadly, when we did the concert in Gander, I couldn't make it, so I haven't been, but I will go. I think I'm planning to go to Prince Edward Island at some point as well, so maybe I'll do both at the same time. But the good thing for me now, if I do go to Newfoundland, is I have plenty of places to stay. So I will get there one day, because I'm interested to see the real place, I've got to say. Yeah.
And how do you choose when to close the musical?
Well, it's simple really. If you're making money, then you close it when it stops making money. If a musical doesn't get off the ground and is not making money, then you look at how long you can feasibly keep it open before it starts costing you money that you don't have. So, I think with the best position you can ever be in with the show is that it's run for a number of years, and you can see, say, 6 months into the future, that it's probably going to start tailing off. So you can design a strategy to leave almost whilst it's still slightly profitable. But it all comes down to numbers. If you can't afford to keep a show on, you close it. You rarely are going to close a show that's making you lots of money. So, yeah.
And do Olivier Awards and Tonys play a huge factor in the decision?
The Tonys mean a lot, financially. If a show wins the Tony, then it will take a lot of money the next day, and it can last. A Tony Award can turn around a show that isn't doing very well at the box office. And likewise for Come From Away, just being involved in the Tonys and being on the telecast can be hugely beneficial. The Oliviers depend. The Oliviers can make a big difference, or they can't make a big difference. It just depends. They're not like the Tonys in terms of profile, because they don't do a big telecast, and we're obviously a smaller country. But ultimately, Come From Away didn't win the Tony that year. Obviously, Dear Evan Hansen did, but Come From Away did very well out of that race. And ultimately, Come From Away has been and will always be a word of mouth show, and that is the best thing that you can have for a show. You can have all the awards in the world, and you can have all the 5-star awards in the world, but if the audiences are coming out of it and not really talking about it, then it doesn't really matter. Every single person, well, let's not say every single, but the majority of people who come in to see Come From Away leave and tell 2, 3, 4 people to go and see it, or they take people back to see it. It's a show that people want to share. So, yeah, I mean, the biggest factor in the success of any show is the audience and the word of mouth.
Yeah, I'm taking my dad to see it today.
Are you? Oh, are you? You're going to see the show?
It's 6th time.
Oh, wow, okay. Well, it'll be interesting for you to... How many... Have you seen it in... Where have you seen it? Have you seen the?
I have seen it 4 times on Broadway and once here in the West End previews.
Okay, brilliant. And so you're going back.
But my dad haven't seen it yet, so it's his first time.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, they're a good cast here. Yeah. So you'll enjoy it, I'm sure. Yeah. It's the only show that I've ever been involved in and produced, really, that I can watch again and again and again. I still enjoy it if I watch it. Every time I watch it, you know, yeah. So yeah.
And what is it like to produce shows on Broadway in comparison to the West End?
You know, it's bigger. Everything's bigger on Broadway. You know, it costs. Everything costs more. You know, the musical theatre is an American art form, really. So the competition, especially with new musicals on Broadway, is massive. I think the year that we were at the Tony Awards, 17, I think, something like that, new musicals had opened that year. And big musicals as well. So there's much more competition. You know, I would say Broadway's more cutthroat than the West End. A lot of my competitors here are also my friends as well. So my friends are, you know, 9 to 5 just opened, produced by 2 of my very good friends. 6 is produced by one of my closest friends. You know, so I think we're a smaller industry, so we almost have to get on because there's only a few of us and we all work together. But the big difference is just the scale. We spend a lot more money on Broadway, but then you charge a lot more money on Broadway. You know, so the economics are just very different. I think fundamentally the things are the same. Fundamentally, then it's about hitting your audience and making sure your message is clear and making sure your narrative is clear. I think US audiences are slightly more sophisticated in their musical theatre tastes. They embrace new musicals a lot more. We're starting to do that over here now. But it's not really been something that we've done over the last decade or so, I would say.
What do you think are the most common misconceptions about being a producer?
I think that we all make loads and loads of money, that we're all we do stuff at the expense of the people who work for us. You know, there's all the thing about why a ticket's so expensive on Broadway and in the UK, and is that because we're all money hungry? And you know, no, that's not it. The truth of the matter is, tickets are expensive because it's very, very risky and it's very, very expensive to produce work in the UK and in the US. When you're putting on a musical and it's costing you a minimum of $5 million, it's a risky business. I think that people do forget that every time you open what producers do effectively is set up new businesses on a regular basis. You know, musicals take, their turnovers are enormous. So what producers are doing on a regular basis is setting up medium-sized companies all the time and running them all the time. And it is very difficult and it is very stressful. And especially with us, I think that we will never, we will always be the first ones to take the hit financially for the benefit of our show. What we won't do is run a show into the ground and still pay ourselves fees or royalties. That's not how we work. We believe in fairness and parity. I think us personally, we're pretty close to our shows. We're pretty close to the people who work for us. We treat them well. We have a lot of respect for them. We pay them well. We care for them. I think the big misconception is that producers aren't fair. And actually, from my point of view, we are very, very fair people. And it's not easy, and we have to make very difficult decisions at times. And we have to make decisions that people don't like. And whether that's about closing a show, or whether that's about decisions we have to make within our within our core team or with our cast, or even small things of we regularly get we have to approve holiday and we have to approve appearances and all of those things, and sometimes we can't approve something that someone wants, and I think that they may be annoyed by that, or they may think that we're wrong, but we've always looked at everything we can in real detail, and we always make our decisions based on what is best for the production as a whole, and also what is fair. So I think we're not all money grabbing, nasty people hiding behind big oak desks. I think we care a lot about what we put on the stage, and we care a lot about the people who we put it on the stage with. Yeah.
What do you like the most about this job?
What do I like most about? Well, it's variety, right? It's varied. You meet new people all the time, and I think that you meet good people all the time, and you're never bored, and you're never. I watch people who work in. I'm very lucky. I do something I love, and I think that's what I most like about this job, is that I do something I love, and very few people are allowed to earn money doing something they love. And my job is very stressful, but I never wake up in the morning and wish I wasn't going to work, ever. Because I'm allowed to do something I love, and that's a real privilege, I think. And it means that I work, extra hard, I would imagine, because I feel very lucky to do it.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to become producer? Like, what's the key to success?
Well, I can't tell you the key to success, sadly. You have to work hard, you have to be brave, you have to make difficult decisions. There's no key to success. It's very difficult, it's very hard. So my advice always is going to be work with people that you want to work with, and produce shows that you believe in. Never just produce a show for the money. Doesn't work. If you only produce something for the money, then you're going to eventually come up short. Never try and sell a product that you don't believe in to people, because that's not fair. You can't guarantee to people that a show's always going to make money. You can't do that. And people who invest in theatre understand that it's risky, and they invest in theatre not just for financial reasons, for a variety of reasons. But you always, if you're selling a product to someone, you have to believe in it. And if you don't believe in it, then don't sell it, ultimately. But look, being a producer is easy and difficult in equal measures. If your show is hugely successful, it's pretty easy. You enjoy it every day, you make a few decisions, and everything's great. But they're not the moments that test you. The moment that test you are when a show is struggling or is difficult, and at that point, you have to roll your sleeves up, and you have to do your very best to find a way through it. And you'll work harder on your failures than you will on your successes, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love you to. So you're doing a degree in folklore.
Yes, public folklore.
So what is that? So what's your degree made up of, and how did you find your way to come from away, I suppose?
Well, instead of writing a dissertation, I'm doing a co-op education master's, so it means that I'm doing 2 work terms.
Right, okay.
And at first I just started working in the archive, and because I'm studying at Memorial University of Newfoundland, I heard about Come From Away, about gender and everything. I wasn't aware of this 9/11 story when I lived in Israel, for example.
Okay.
And after seeing the musical on Broadway for the first time, I just wanted to do an oral history project about 9/12 response in Gender and surrounding communities.
Yeah.
Because folklore, we document stuff. It's about traditions and like oral history, different personal experience narratives. So I went to Gander to do field work.
Right.
And I interviewed only 10 people so far. and I'm going again to Gander this summer to interview more people.
Right.
Because we didn't have any of these interviews in our local archive in St. John's.
Right.
And so I just thought that it would be important to document these stories while the people are still alive and can, share them.
Yeah, yeah.
So...
Well, that's the most important thing, right? You have to document the stories, otherwise
you'll forget eventually.
People will eventually forget, right?
Yeah, and that's what folklore is about.
Right.
Like what people care about, the everyday traditions, personal experiences.
Yeah.
And at the same time I started working on my second project about occupational folk life.
Okay.
And I just started interviewing people who work in theatre. Because, many people don't know about different career options in theatre. For example, they don't know about flymen or dramaturges.
Yeah.
So I just started interviewing different people in Canada and then Broadway, and right now I came to London.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. You make a good point there. That's the other thing about theatre. People look at theatre and think you're just artists. We're all a bunch of artists and creatives and just running around town, putting on plays. But there's so many different jobs in theatre. There are. And not just like PR in theatre and marketing in theatre and social and theatre specific social, but you're right. Flyman, dramaturg, chief electrician. Like it's endless, really. The jobs in theatre. You can be, if you want to be a lawyer but you love theatre, be a lawyer in theatre. If you want to be an accountant and you love theatre, you can combine the two. It is possible to combine the two. It's possible to do a job you're good at in an industry you love. And I think, I talk about it as a producer. I could effectively, what I do is I sell a product, and I could be selling, a lot. I sit in an office, that's surrounded by show posters, but a lot of my day is spent looking at budgets, and deciding on strategies, and looking at spreadsheets. I could be selling anything. The fundamentals are the same. I could be selling new trainers. I could be selling some kind of Hoover. Like, I could be selling anything. The fundamentals are the same. And I spend a lot of my time just looking at math and looking at spreadsheet and looking at numbers, like any person who's at a certain level in their industry would do. I'm just lucky that what I sell is, number one, something I understand, but something that I love and I've loved for years. But fundamentally, a producer is we're a salesman, really. On a bigger scale. We are. And I think that's what you always want to say to people if they, because I have no theatre in my life. I don't have family who are in theatre. My introduction was theatre was that my parents took me. I was very lucky that they took me to see theatre. But I think people think theatre or being in theatre is not accessible. It is. You can do anything you want in this industry. It's a huge industry, and there's a variety of jobs you can do. And I think if you love it, then you should try and find, as I said earlier, I found my way to being a producer. And I think if you love theatre, just go into it and you will find your way to doing what you should be doing. Yeah. Like you're doing were you a fan of theatre before?
Yes. So
you're doing a degree on folklore, and yet you find your way into Come From Away and doing this big exploration of theatre, right? So it encompasses so much theatre, and I think it's interesting in that sense as well, really interesting. So and I think Come From Away is a really special project because you couldn't make up Come From Away. You couldn't make up the story. If you made the story up, people just wouldn't believe it, and it would be too preachy, and people would think it was too nice, and but it's all true. It all happened. And those people of Newfoundland, and look, I'm sure there's people in Newfoundland that are grumpy but those people did open their homes just like that, and they didn't ask for anything. And it's remarkable, really. And when you meet them, they are as nice as you're told. And I don't think anyone believes that. No one believes that these people can be but they are that nice. And I think also shows come around at the right time. And would Come From Away have worked 10 years ago? I don't know. Would Come From Away have worked if Hillary Clinton was president now and not Donald Trump? I don't know. I think Come From Away caught a zeitgeist, and I think that it is the show that people need right now. And it's the show that people need right now because it's true. And it gives people a bit of hope that there is, you know, for all the bad in the world, which is sadly, you know, what news reports, because it sells papers. But for all the bad in the world, there's somewhere like Gander, which reminds us that there's a tremendous amount of good, you know, genuine goodness in this world. We just don't hear about it enough, I think. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
So, you know, I just think, you know, and it has its life of its own, this show, and it grows and grows and grows. And the more people we meet, you know, we get people get in contact with us once a week. New people who were there, new people who were stuck in Gander, new people who are somewhere involved, and every single one of them, you know, tells the same story about how those 5 days played out. They want to talk about it. They've got pictures, and it's amazing. You know, so we're very lucky. It's very unique. I don't think I'll ever be involved in a show like Come From Away again my whole life, and I'm not that old. So yeah.
Well, it's almost noon, so thank you so much
Oh,
for
pleasure.
meeting with me.
Thanks for coming.